Fáilte Rove, Goji Old School Manud, Dunlaw Sculta. You're very, very welcome to Maynooth University this morning. My name is John McGinnity, and with me is my colleague Judy Caffrey, the undergraduate communications officer here at the university in the admissions team, and our colleague Beth McKay, who's a graduate as of yesterday, a newly minted graduate in psychology through science. And we're with you for the next 45 minutes or so, and we're delighted that you've joined us. We're just going to wait a minute or two to let people join in, and then we'll kick off. Just the sequence today in terms of what's going to happen is I'm going to do a short presentation, and there is a Q&A button just on the panel there. And if you have a look at the Q&A button, please pop in any questions that you wish, and we'll take them as we go along. My colleague Judith Caffrey will answer them. We might take a break after about 20 minutes or so and just take any questions or anything around that. We maybe just take them on a voice basis at that stage. And then when we finish the presentation after about a half an hour or so, my colleague Beth McKay will be talking. I think part of the focus this morning is around the transition to college. And Beth will, I suppose, give that sense of a student perspective as to how she found the change from second level into third level, and how the experience and the journey has been for her and the ups and downs in that. So let's kick off, and I'll just show you the presentation. So bear with me a second while I share my screen.
It's great, John.
You're seeing that okay? That's
Yep,
great.
that's great.
And so as I mean, the important and the core part of this is the CAO process. And one of the things we'll be taking it from is you may be applying as a fifth year student, and you couldn't be in a fifth year, you could be already in sixth year, just finished the Leaving Cert or finishing it off at the moment, or indeed a mature student or QQI. So all of those perspectives we'll be looking at, and that's the shape of the presentation. We just wanted to show you this. This is a new building, 55 million euro. Maynooth University, we're the fastest growing university in the country. And one of the most important things to us is our students. But obviously, if you want to care for the students, there's a whole sense of having an infrastructure on campus. So the building here in the foreground is a new 55 million building that's just being completed at the moment. Phase 1 of it is due for completion in October this year, and phase 2 in January 2022. And we've just acquired an extra part of land over to the west of the campus, and we're going to be starting to build a new student centre, which will be available in 2023. So as a university, there's a sense of growth. There's a wonderful campus experience between a very new and modern campus, but also beside it a very old and heritage-based campus. So it's a lovely blend of the two campuses coming together. So in some way, for students coming to us this September, a significant amount of the new infrastructure will be available as October comes along. And you might be inquiring, well, how much of the on-campus experience will I have? And our understanding is certainly the Minister for Further and Higher Education, Simon Harris, there's a sense among the university and college community to have as much campus experience this year as possible. And we're certainly hoping and working with the government closely, subject to public health guidelines, to have as much of the tutorials and labs and lectures as we possibly can on campus from September. Our first years will be starting on the 20th of September in terms of orientation week, and then the actual lectures for first years will start on the 27th of September. So part of this morning is the whole sense around going to college, the differences between school and college, and how we as a community here in Maynooth can support you and help you in making the right decision for you. And I'm conscious that can be a difficult decision because you're thinking, what is it I want to do? Where is it I want to do it? My whole sense of the journey in terms of my career and future. But we give you some guidance and tips on that to help you make that decision. One of the things we really focus on is the importance of the CAO process. It's a very fair process, but there's a whole set of rules that you just have to be aware of. Because fundamentally, once you understand the basics, then nothing wrong can happen. The most important thing is to have those basics. And then, as I said, as we go along, please put any questions you have in the Q&A, but we'll also take questions towards the end as well, and a little break in the middle to take some questions. So one of the things just to mention is, you might say, is it worth all the effort going to college? Is college worth it as a sense of something that I should aim for? And we as a group would be very conscious of the transformational effect that a college experience can have. We'd certainly be somebody and people who would kind of support lots of people who join us each year. Our first year intake is over 3,500. And what you're getting a sense is an individual who's coming to study something that they actually love, something that they have a passion for. And I think that's the key thing we'd be saying to you, to study something you enjoy. Um, and obviously you may have an eye to the job market, an eye to, well, what will I do afterwards? Fundamentally, there's a whole part about doing something that you relish, and when you wake up in the morning, that it's something that you want to be studying. The other wonderful thing about college is the whole social clubs and societies. And here today, you'll find on the open day, there's a window into our clubs and societies, and there's over 150 different clubs and societies here, very active. And in a sense, there's a whole sense of learning and experiences as you move through your clubs and societies. One of the wonderful things about Maynooth University is the opportunity to study abroad. And as a university, we're connected with over 150 university partners all over the world. And so by coming to Maynooth, it's a platform to see the world, to study elsewhere, to work elsewhere. A lot of our programs have a work placement dimension, and that's something we're very proud of. So in some way, while you're doing your university experience, you're also getting to do some work experience as well. And that can be really, really good for you. And then the final thing I just want to mention here about college, and you might be saying, why college? What we are finding, so for instance, there's labor economists here in our economics department. And when you do research as to what is the salary differential between somebody who goes to college and somebody who doesn't, there's about a 15% premium for every minute, for every hour, for every day of the rest of your working life. So there's a financial gain. But more importantly than that, what we find is that people who've gone on to college typically work in jobs that they're more job satisfied in and have more opportunities to progress in those jobs. And so over the lifespan, you have an opportunity to have a very fulfilling and enjoyable life based on your college experience. One of the things we often get asked is, what are the difference between school and college? And absolutely, there are differences. There's similarities, but there are differences as well. So, you know, if you're in a school of maybe 500 students, the student population here at Maynooth is 14,000. We have 1,000 staff, so we've 15,000. So that's, you know, a factor of 30 times the normal institution that you might have been studying over the last few years. The timetable can range from 9 in the morning till 6, Monday to Friday. And okay, it can be different because the school day is between 9 and 3 or 9 and 4, and there's something happening each time. Whereas in the university, there could be something from 9 until 10, something from 11 to 12, then nothing between 2 up until 2 to 3. You could have something, and then 5 to 6. So it's a very different timetable. One of the wonderful things about college is the sense of growth, and in that there's a sense of different opportunities, flexibility in terms of your curriculum. And so here at Maynooth, we have a very flexible curriculum because we feel that a lot of our students will relish and benefit from the choice of having time to choose their subjects. So in most of our degree programs here at Maynooth, we have a fantastic curriculum that allows students 4 weeks to shop around, to sit into different modules and subjects before maybe deciding. And that's something that's very, very important to us, and something that really students value from when they move on to us from school. And then one thing just to say about assessment is the university's assessment here is assessed every semester. So at the end of between September and December, we have exams in January, and you're examined in that material, and then you move on and you're not examined in that material again. So basically, it's unlike the Leaving Cert, we've 2 years of knowledge to manage in an exam session. Here and in most colleges, it's semesterized. So you move on, and there is progression, you're learning, and there's building blocks there, but it's a much more friendly assessment experience. And in many ways, with continuous assessment, you already have lots of percentage marks in the bag before you face the terminal exam at the end of the semester. So it's a very flexible way to learn, and students enjoy that experience. One of the things we often find when students are in 5th year and 6th year saying, how do I make the right decision? What's the best thing for me? And in some way we'd be saying, you know, find out what is the right question for you. What are the things that you want to do? And one of the things we'd be saying is that by being here today, it's that sense of research, finding out information. We'd be very, very strong in connecting in with your guidance counselor. So if you're in 6th year, 5th year, connecting with the guidance counselor to get that advice, speaking to students who are currently studying the subject that you're thinking about, and people are doing the job that you're actually doing. So if you're interested in a particular career, go and talk to somebody who's doing that particular career and find out what are the highs and lows each day for that person, and what are the things that they, so getting the sense from them as to what their experiences were. One of the wonderful things here at Maynooth University is we have a course finder module database, and that module is a teaching that happens over 12 weeks, and you can drill down into every single degree, into every single year, into every single semester, and look at every single module that you'll be doing, and look at the content and the objectives and the assessment. So it's a wonderful experience in terms of our Maynooth course finder that's there for you. The other advice we give you is, certainly as a parent or a fifth year student, sixth year QQI or mature, there is a lot of resources online. And so there's wonderful websites like studentfinance.ie, accesscollege.ie. Two ones that we strongly recommend are Qualifax, and they're free resources. Qualifax is a whole database of courses. Careers Portal is a wonderful resource as well. So they have a lot of videos about a day in the life. So if you're interested in a particular career, you can actually go in and listen to that person's experiences doing that job. So one of the wonderful things we'd be saying is information is key, and a lack of information means that you might make the wrong decision. So our strong advice would be finding out that information. And certainly you might be saying, can I do that and do all of the study and all of that? But we'd be saying set aside some time each week to do this piece. One of the wonderful things about Maynooth University is the accessibility and the transfer and the arrangements we have. So just to give you a sense of, this is the CAO and the structure of the CAO. So in primary, so on the left-hand side, this is the national framework of qualification, starting with level 1 on the left-hand side, which is primary education, up until level 10, which is a doctorate. And when you're in Leaving Cert, it's levels 4 and 5. Junior Cert is level 3. And moving on then from Leaving Cert into college, the CEO picks it up at level 6. Here you can see is a higher certificate, 2-year, normally full-time program. A level 7 ordinary bachelor degree, a level 7, which is a 3-year program. And then all of the programs here at Maynooth University are on level 8, CAO level 8 degree courses. They're honours degrees that give you the stepping stone to go on and do postgraduate study if you wish, or any other professional training. And here at Maynooth, in terms of the level 8 courses, they then give you the stepping stone, as I say, into level 9 if you want to go on and do a master's, or level 10, which would be maybe for 4 years for PhD, or 6 years part-time to do a PhD. So this is the national framework of qualifications, and you see it has a strong resonance across even various sectors of the economy, whereby employers are saying, we're looking for a particular graduate with a level 8 qualification. So you sense that. And just to recap again, the CEO looks after levels 6 and 7 on one list of 10 choices, and level 8 then is another list of 10 choices. And we'll have a look at that in a moment. So one of the wonderful things about Maynooth University is the progression routes that we have set in train. And we have 3,500 students who join us in first year, but we're very proud to say that 300 students would join us as mature students each year. And they're over 23, lots of life experience, ranging as age from 23 to 83, people who want to go back and learn. And we set aside also 300 places for the QQI courses here. So that's basically the further education, so QQI courses. And so, yes, about 2,800 of our students are coming in through the Leaving Cert points, but a lot of our students are coming in through the QQI and the mature. And so in some way, if you didn't get a place with us, what we find sometimes is people will do a year in a college of further education and then reapply the next year. So sometimes people may have missed out on us in 2020, but are coming to us in 2021 based on their QQI. So the wonderful thing about is that progression of learning, that progression whereby Maynooth University has a number of different pathways to us. And indeed, we have a number of students who join us as transfer students, might have done a level 6, maybe in Institute of Technology Dundalk in business, and then transfer into second year with us. So there's lots of opportunities. So if you said that that's all very well, John, but what's the competition like? How many people apply? So this is the class of 2020, and 78,000 people applied. And when I looked this morning at the 2021 applications, it's about 84,000 people applied. So it's gone up about 6,000 places. Now, last year, the Minister for Education worked very hard to increase the number of places in third level, and Maynooth University stepped up to the plate, and we increased places here at the university. And our understanding is, again, there's a commitment or a wish from the government to increase places again, if that's at all possible. So one of the things just to say is that although there's about 80,000 people applying, in terms of the number of places in the CAO is about 50,000. And so you can see here, level 8 last year was about 42,000, level 7.6 about 7,000, about 50,000 places. So, and that had risen by about 2,000 places. So it is a scheme whereby almost when you add in the colleges of further education, there's a place in the system for every single student. It's not that we can guarantee that every single student will get the place that they want, because there is some competition in that. We'll explain that, how that works in a moment, but that's just to give you the shape in terms of the competition. I just want to move on then in terms of the timelines. And the wonderful thing about the CAO is it's a very friendly, very accessible system. And you might be already have gone through this process as a sixth year. I'm conscious we have students joining us today who are just finishing fifth year and going into sixth year. And what will happen is each year there's an annual cycle where the CAO opens on the 5th of November. People can apply up until the 20th of January at the discounted rate. And then up until the 1st of February is the closing date for early applications to the CAO. And you have to have in what are called restricted course applications. So if you're interested in a course like music here at Maynooth University or community and youth work, you'd have to have applied before the 1st of February. And then what happens is the CAO genuinely closes down the applications to allow people to do the orals and mocks and so on. And then it opens again on the 5th of May and then closes on the 1st of July, which is next Thursday at 5:15 p.m. So there's an annual cycle of the CAO, a pattern to it, and it's a very friendly and accessible system that allows the student to make an application and then over time make their choices and make changes of choices as they go. Fundamentally, there's a really, really important aspect, which is a lot of the course in the CAO will have a basic matriculation, which is a general entry of education that you need. And then particular courses will have a specific course requirement. So that could be a science subject for science. It may be mathematics for engineering, a particular grade. And you just need to check that you're doing the right subject at the right grade. So for instance, our primary teaching degree here at Maynooth, the B.Ed primary degree that a lot of people apply for, you have to have a H4 in Irish. So even if you had 600 points, if you don't have a H4 in Irish, we can't give you a place. So in a sense, those are very important. And having satisfied those conditions, then we look at the points. And then just one final thing is to say that the CAO produces the handbook each summer, but then it can change during the year between some courses cancelled, some new courses, and just keep an eye on the website to keep them. So if you've already applied to the CAO, have a look back into the CAO website to see are there new courses that have come along since you applied earlier in the year. And then I just want to very briefly talk about just the application to the CAO. It's a very private thing, and I'm conscious families will be in discussion about the application, and parents will be talking to sons and daughters and guardians and so on. And one of the things that it is a private application CAO, and from that you'll get a password, and then each time that you want to make a change, you'll be able to go in and make changes to your CAO. This is just a brief snapshot of the 21 application for 2021. And obviously the one for 2022 is already in train and has been worked on at the moment and will be very similar to this. And they're looking for basic biographical details. And then importantly, if you're applying to CAO, it might be you're applying on the basis of QQI results or as a mature student or results from other countries. And it's very, very important to have those. You can see the tick boxes that are here to indicate to the CAO what are the basis of your assessment. It's amazing each year, a lot of people apply to the CAO and neglect to tell the CAO that they're doing a leaving certificate in that year. So it's very important to fill out those details. And then you get a password, and then that basically lets you in all the time. So it's a really, really good system, a very open system. This is probably the most important slide to look at, and it fundamentally sits within the CAO, and it's about genuine order of preference. So on the level 8 list and on the level 7.6 list, there are 10 choices. And students often say, well, how will I go about this? So you basically say to yourself, what's the course I most want to do in the college I most want to be in? And then you place that number 1. If it's a level 8 course on the level 8 list, and vice versa, if it's a level 7.6 course on the level 7.6 list. Now, these two lists are entirely separate in the CAO system, and there's a CAO computer that looks after your choices in level 7 and 6, and it looks after separately your choices on level 8. So they're independent lists. And what you do is you say, if I just didn't get my first preference, what would I most want to do? And that's number 2. And if I didn't get that, what's number 3? and you work on down from number 1 to number 10 on each list. Very, very important. The application fee that you apply for is the same whether you apply for 1 or 20. And often students might only apply for a couple of courses and then find they don't get the points and don't get a place. So our advice would be genuinely look seriously at all of the courses. There are 1,500 in the CAO, and it is valuable. And our advice would be to complete all of your choices. The other risk is sometimes people just spend a lot of time on their first and second preference and then fill out the others just randomly. Very, very important to make sure that your 9th preference is more important than your 10th, that your 5th is more important than your 6th, and so on. So every single preference matters as you move on down, because the CAO computer will move on down to try and find you the highest place that you're entitled to. And it's so, so important that 5:15 next Thursday, the 1st of July, is the deadline. You have to have it in before then. So then just to kind of wrap up on that application phase, there's a statement of application that goes from the CEO, and the CEO will be saying, these are the choices that we understand that you're applying for. You have to just make sure that they're in the right course. Check if you're doing, say, applied for an exemption. It may be that you're not studying Irish. You might have dyslexia. You've made an application for an exemption in Irish. It might be that you've applied for different courses and you're just deciding them. That statement of record will come through in May. And from that, you'll be able to decide, say, this is what it's a standing. It's basically saying, this is what we know about you. If you had a prior leave insert, prior exams from other countries, very important. The CEO is dealing with 85,000. It can't look after everybody. It needs you to make sure you're looking after your own application, and then advise the CEO immediately if you see any errors. So just pause for a second, Judith. I don't know if there's any questions have come in. I will just take any questions that have come through there.
Hi, John. Yes. Oh, well, one question from the people who are attending today about lectures and how many lectures a person should expect per week.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And so that's a lovely question. In a sense, it will vary depending on the subject and the discipline that somebody is studying. Now, there is a balance to be struck. So, for instance, in engineering and science, it could be 25 hours and a lot of contact because you're doing a lot of labs. In the humanities and law and business, it might be in the high teens, but then you will get a lot of reading to do and a lot of essays and assignments. So whereas the standard week in a school would be almost 30 hours a week, you will be coming down from that and you'll have a bit more time during the day, but it will vary depending on the discipline. So as I say, if it's science and engineering, it's going to be in the low 20s, low to middle 20 hours per week, still a drop down from school. If it's in the humanities and law and business, in the teens. If you're doing, say, beginner language, you'll have more hours because you're learning a new language. So it will vary depending on the discipline. I hope that makes sense, Judith. Yeah.
Apologies, rookie error there.
Not at all.
Yeah, a couple more questions. If you put both levels down, would you get offered both level 7 and level 8 courses?
Yes, you absolutely will. And that's the wonderful thing about the CEO. And there's a computer that's looking after you in level 8 list. And there's another computer that's looking after you in your level 7-6. And each of those computers are going to try and get you the highest on that list that it possibly can. And so certainly if you have the entry requirements and the points and you're above the cutoff, you will get an offer on your level 8 list and an offer on your level 7-6 list. We will come to it later, but the important thing then is in any round, in any individual round, you can't accept more than one offer. So in round 1, if you got your third preference in both lists, you can only accept one of them, but that doesn't negate you then getting a higher offer in the next round. So you absolutely can get 2 offers, yes.
Okay, great. Just a couple more. One of the questions is, as you're saying about what's going to be coming further in your presentation about if you don't get any of your choices in level 7, or yes, level 8 rather, would you be given your level 7? So you will come to that, I think.
Yeah.
Just in terms of how many people apply for the arts course.
Sure.
And so, yeah.
Sorry, Jude. About 7,500 apply. We've about 1,700 places. So a lot. It's the most popular degree in the country. And so if you were to rank the 1,500 courses in the CEO and said, okay, let's rank them on a list with what's the one that has the highest number of applications, what's the degree that has the highest number of first preferences, it's the Maynooth University arts degree because of the range of subjects that's there. Judith, sorry, I cut you off in the middle there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. And then how do you indicate an Irish exemption on your CAO application? Is it done automatically?
It is. So what's happening there is there's a wonderful dialogue between the NUI in Merrion Square and the CAO in Galway. And those two organizations talk to each other. So when you make an application to the NUI and you get a letter from the NUI to say that you have an exemption, the NUI will be asking you for your CEO number, and then they transfer a file to the CEO saying, these are the people with the exemptions. So you don't have to worry about it. Now, just be careful. Often people get an exemption from studying Irish in school from the Department of Education. That's a separate exemption altogether from an exemption for college admission. And there's exemptions from the NUI, which is the National University of Ireland, in Maynooth University, UCD, UCC, and NUIG. And so one exemption covers all those institutions. But there are separate exemptions then in Trinity College, UL, and DCU. So you have to apply for those separately. But the wonderful thing is, if you get an exemption from the NUI, it corresponds directly to the CEO. And under GDPR, you'll be giving permission to the NUI to transfer your data to the CEO. Thanks, Judith.
Yeah, there's a good few questions coming in, but I think a lot of them you'll be answering in the next part of your presentation. So maybe I'll mute myself now and you can continue on, John. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you very much, Judith. Thank you. So often we get questions then as, how am I going to be assessed? How are we going to know what actually happens in the background? So this particular slide shows you the way we will be working through with your CEO. So the results will be coming out on the 1st of September. So basically what will be happening will be the results, on Friday, the 3rd of September. And then the round one offers are the following Tuesday, the 7th of September. But what happens is the State Exams Commission provide all of your examination results to the CEO. And obviously this year, there's a combination of accredited grades and then also exams that you might have done. And you will get the best single result from any subject. And then we're going to take the best 6 subjects in your scoring. And so if you get a H6, we give you 46. If you get an O5, we give you 20. And what the CEO computer does firstly is adjust for the maths bonus. So what maths bonus is, if you've taken honours maths and you've a H6 or higher, you get 25 points. So say you have a H6, which is 46, the CEO computer immediately will add 25 to it to give you 71. So now your math score is 71. And what the computer then does is it ranks all of your subject grades and points, and then it takes the best 6. Now, sometimes there's a misnomer that people say that in every case, I'm actually going to get my maths bonus. But in fact, you only get the maths bonus if, following the adjustment of your maths score, it's actually in the top 6 subjects. And sometimes people kind of think that, no, that's wrong. But in fact, what happens is the computer will adjust for maths and then it will rank your subjects. And if your maths, and it often is, like when I look at results, maths bonus is always in there. But in a way, just to say, technically, to be correct, it's only in there if it's one of the best 6. And basically, you can see here that it works down in gradations of 12 points between a H1 and a H2, and then 11 to a H3, and then 10 points to a from H4 to H5 and so on. So as you move down, you actually get a lower score. As you move up, you get a higher score and a higher differential. So that's how it works in the CEO. So if, in summary, we'll be adjusting for the maths bonus and then taking your best 6 subjects is how it works. If you get a H7 in mathematics, you get 37 points, but you don't get the bonus. And sometimes people have been thinking, well, should I move between maths and honours maths and pass maths? But so just have a look at it. Obviously, if you get an O2 or an O1, it's better than a H7, but a H6 in maths will give you a higher score. And then people will say, well, how will it all work? And if we look at it, like the maximum you can get is the 625, which is the bonus of 25 for the maths, and then 100 points for each of your H1s. But the average is much lower than that. And so just to be aware of that. And then when we look at the number of places in terms of how the points are determined, it'll be determined by the number of applicants, the number of places, and then how well the people who applied for that course, how well they did. So that's very, very important. So that combination of applicants, places, and then how well did the people do who applied for the particular course. And when we look at 2019 in terms of the spread of points, in terms of a distribution, you can see it's a kind of a normal curve with a certain number, small number at the bottom, small number at the top, and then most people in the middle. And that was the distribution in 2019. If we look at 2020, the distribution moved slightly to the right. So more people moved to higher points. And that was you probably recall last year, the Leaving Cert wasn't actually sat. Everybody got a calculated grade. It was called a calculated grade back in 2020. And so if I put the two together, you can see that there was a drift to the right-hand side upwards in 2020. And the effect of that was that certainly across the system, and particularly here at Maynooth University, our points rose by about 20 points. So there was sort of a wave of increasing grades leading into increasing points. Now, obviously, if it goes back to 2019 levels, this year points will be falling, but it's very hard to predict in 2021. But just to say, you can't do more than your best, and you've done all your best if you're already a sixth-year student. And it's very hard to predict, but what happens is if there's higher points in the system in terms of grades, that raises points. If there's lower points in the system, points fall. So in a sense, getting more points can be good for the individual, but in the system, if the points have gone up, then the points will rise, and it moves between that. But we can take questions towards the end on that as well. And then briefly, I just want to mention two schemes. The DARE scheme, we're very proud to be part of the DARE scheme. So if you have a disability, we want you to let us know, and you would have already applied under the DARE route. There's the HERE scheme if you feel as though because of socioeconomic disadvantage, you would need access. And we have a system of up to 60 points, so concessions on points. So certainly the DARE scheme, the HERE scheme, have a look on accesscollege.ie. We highly recommend them because we support students here at Maynooth. We're very proud to be part of the HERE and DARE scheme. So as a parent or as a student, you might be saying, well, how much will it cost for me to go to college at Maynooth University this year or next year? And so in some way, we can only speak to 2021. And the cost will be €3,000 plus a student levy of 150. Now, often our students will pay them in two installments, the first installment in September and then a second installment in January. And the state will step in on a SUSI grant to fund the family if household income is less than about 50,000. So there is a whole scheme in place to support you, and just be aware of that. And each year, now it's very hard to know what the fees will be beyond that, but certainly the €3,000 student contribution has been there for a number of years now. And I think it's okay to say it's likely to continue, although we can't say for certain. And then I just want to mention, if a student joins us and then leaves during the year and then returns, they don't pay any tuition fee for the first experience of college. But if you repeat the year, you do have to pay the tuition fee and the student contribution charge. So it's so important to make sure that you are applying for courses that you genuinely have an interest in, because if you have to leave the college because you don't like the course or whatever, for other reasons, and return, you will have to pay an added amount. And I just want to mention at Maynooth, we're very strong on having student apartments here. They're blended in terms of we tend to have first years and second years and third years and people from different countries, but we reserve about 50% of our places for first years. And that will be coming available and will be online to book into from the 8th of September. So offers will be going out on the 7th of September. And then the next day we'll be opening up the bookings for accommodation. And you can see the costs there. So just to recap, in terms of the CAO, there's the aspect of strict order of preference and studying all of your preferences carefully. There's the aspect of the application deadlines and checking eligibility and knowing about restricted courses and having those in before the 1st of February. So there's a set of rules, a set of conditions there, important just to have those in place. And I just want to show you briefly then an example of a student who's applying across their preferences and what actually happens in the CAO. So if we take this particular student, that the points total is in blue and their actual course requirements are in orange, you can see across they have 10 different preferences. So this student has applied for a whole range of courses, right from preference 1 to preference 10. And when we look at it, you'd be saying, well, they won't get an offer for preference 1 because they have lower points than the threshold. And the same for 2, but 3, in the case of 3, her points are higher than the cutoff point. And then if we look at 4, you might be saying there's a number of these particular courses where you might be saying this student has higher points than the cutoff, so they will get a range of offers. But actually what happens in the CAO is the CAO computer will work down through and say, I can't get her into her first choice, can't get her into the second, have a look at the third, yes. And then what it does is it actually deletes all the choices below. So that's why it's so important to have your preferences in order, because as soon as the computer gets you the highest course you're entitled to, it deletes everything below. And so often people are actually saying, but I really wanted my fifth choice. I got my third, can I move down? Unfortunately, you can't, because that's gone off to somebody else. So that's why it's so, so important to have your choices all in place. And so what we'll be saying is, you know, absolutely at the top of your CEO, you're sort of, this is one model to work on, that sense that these are my dream courses. Then more importantly, more realistic ones as you move down, and then basically say if things didn't go so well on the day, or you know, because of the calculated grade, the accredited grades, if I don't get as good as I thought I would, that I have some backup courses. So it's very, very important to have those in place. Now, just to say in terms of how it all works, Judith, my colleague, was saying earlier on about what if I get a level 7, 6 offer and a level 8 list. So fundamentally what happens is, yes, you can get 2 offers, but in any round, you can only accept one of them. And if you're offered your third preference in each list, you have a choice that week of deciding which of these do I most want to do. Accepting it, the other offer then goes away. And the college that you're accepting is told, I'm accepting. And the college that is the level 7-6 course, if you're accepting the level 8 course, for instance, the level 7-6 college knows that you're not coming. And the computers keep a check and see what you're doing. And that's all kind of communicated to the colleges from the CAO. The other thing just to mention is that if you get your offer, say your third preference in round 1, you absolutely might get a higher preference for a second or first preference in a later round, but you might not. And say, for instance, you decide, I'm not taking it, I'm sure I'm going to get something higher. But if nothing higher comes in round 2 or round 3, you can't go back and ask for it back because it's gone to somebody else. So our advice would be treat every offer as though you're last, because you've no guarantee you will get a higher offer. So very, very important to treat any offer you get as your last. And then there's a couple of things just to mention. One is random selection. So sometimes what happens in colleges is you might have 50 places. What you find is that, you know, 45 places are filled by people with 400 points or more. So everybody on 400 points, 45 places are filled with that group. And then you're looking for 5 more places. But what you find on 399 is there's 10 people with 399, all have the same points. What the CEO computer does is it randomly goes in and picks out 5 from the 10. But anybody with 400 and higher gets an offer. And the random selection is only on the people on the same score, the 399, and it's a completely random, it's like a lotto. It very rarely happens. And last year, Minute, we're very proud to say we didn't have any random selection courses, but in a sense, it's just to say that can happen. And then I just want to mention available places, that there's some good courses that can come up in available places in the CEO, and that opens up after round 1. And so, for instance, engineering here in university, we tend to have available places in engineering where you can do a special chance maths exam, a second chance maths exam, and from that get a place in engineering. So we'll have more details on that later on in the summer. And then just to mention about appeals and upgrades, here at Minute, we try to fill and give the place to the person as soon as we know. Obviously, last year came where the results came way after the courses had started, but genuinely, we try and give you the place if the repeals are turned around in time. If not, we have to wait a year. And then deferrals, one of the things we do is we have a policy around, yes, you seek deferrals with us, but we in the past have been able to give deferrals on each of our courses. It's something we're very keen to do and to continue with. So if you are thinking of deferring to 2022, you certainly should be applying this year and then letting us know that you're not wishing to come in 2021, but can I have a place in 2022, and then secure for 2022. And then next year, you'll be the first to get an offer in 2022. I just want to mention a couple of final things around connecting in with us. We have a really good MU chat portal that's going to be open for the next 4 days here at the university. So if you have any questions from our students, that'll continue on. And we have a really good ask model as well, where you can ask us questions over the next few days. We're here to help you. And I'll just wrap up now by saying we will be taking more questions and answers in a second, but I'm going to stop sharing my slides at this point and come back here. And I'm very proud to finish up at that stage, but I just want to, as I said, express pride that I'm just going to introduce my colleague Beth McKay, who's just graduated yesterday from Psychology Through Science. So I'm going to hand over to Beth to talk about her experiences here in terms of transitioning to college. So over to you, Beth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John. So as we said, my name's Beth. I just finished MH209 Psychology through Science, which is very exciting. And I'm just going to take you through a bit of my experience in terms of transitioning to college from secondary school, why I chose my degree, and kind of where I am now in terms of that, and as well as that, what I enjoyed about university life. So first of all, talking about my transition to college from secondary school, I was very lucky. I do have an older brother who had already gone through the process before, ahead of me. And, you know, I joined him on open days and I spoke to him about student life. So I did have an idea about what being a student was like and how it worked and what the different colleges were like as a basis. But of course, not everyone will have that. And that's why I do recommend going to open days like this. Once I got to college, I lived on campus in my first year. It was a really like cool experience, quite interesting. It's not always easy living with strangers, but the accommodation itself is really nice. I lived in some really nice digs after that, which I actually found through a Maynooth University website that they run called Student Pad, which helps you find like digs in the Maynooth area. And then in my final like third year and then a bit of my final year, I lived in private accommodation with friends. So as you can see, there's a lot of options when it comes to where to live in and around the Maynooth area. Obviously you can commute as well, but that's what suited me. And then in terms of how I personally found the transition to college, I really enjoyed like the much greater level of independence and responsibility that comes with college work versus secondary school work. You know, you're not being chased after by teachers for homework. You're just expected to do your work, and it means you can really like balance your life the way you want to. I quickly met people in my course who are still some of my best friends, and I'm glad to say they did well yesterday too. And you know, it's not all easy. I found living away from home, you know, a bit lonely at times, but you get used to it. And like you get older, you get more experience, you find people to connect with. So it does get easier, of course. And in terms of my favorite parts about transitioning to college, I got to meet so many new people through my course, of course, but also student societies. And as I mentioned previously, I really liked managing my own schedule and kind of like dictating how my day went. So moving on then to kind of why I chose my degree. Funnily enough, I chose psychology because I thought it sounded interesting and it was what I was drawn to. There was no other reason. I did not know what I wanted to do after college. I didn't know what job I wanted, nothing. I chose psychology because I liked it and it worked out very well. My degree choice suited me. As you can see, I made it this far. I really loved studying psychology and it really gave me a great basis in terms of the skills and knowledge I need to do what I want to do now, which is I'm actually pursuing a master's in Queen's University Belfast in animal behavior and welfare. And you know, a lot of people who study psychology do so to become psychologists, which is obviously completely valid. But as you can see, there are a lot of different career paths available from a degree in psychology, as well as all other kinds of degrees. You don't have to know what you want to do going in, and you don't have to stick to maybe the standard path when it comes to your career path. And I'm really excited to pursue that. As I mentioned before, I did attend a lot of open days, and that's how I chose psychology. This really helped me on my choice of my course and college. It helped me know what courses I didn't like as well as what I did. I originally wanted to do like media studies, which is a fantastic course, but it's not what would have suited me. And I only knew that by going to talks and going, oh, that's not what I thought this was, you know? And so by going to open days, I knew how I felt about each college. And then I knew the differences between the psychology courses and colleges, because, you know, there's similar courses in multiple colleges. And personally, I really liked the like third year in the MH209 here in Maynooth, where you can do like work experience and stuff. And as well as that, I actually chose Maynooth before I chose my course. So I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I just liked Maynooth. And so I searched for courses there. As well as that, I also attended summer schools in Maynooth University and UCD on psychology specifically, and a lot of the colleges offer that sort of thing where you get to like try out what lectures are like, and it gave me the chance to ask as many questions as I wanted, and also again really helped me settle on my choice. So just to wrap up, what I enjoyed about university life, and it's crazy to think that it's actually my undergraduate experience is over now. I loved studying something that really interests me. I felt so engaged with the course content all the time, particularly in final year as well. The content was so good in terms of like I had that basis, so we got to like more high level stuff. I loved trying new and exciting opportunities. Like I was on the committee of different student societies like Disney Society. I ran events for Disney Society as well as Game Society. I did research during my time as an undergraduate, and I got to work at events like this where I get to connect with prospective students who used to be like me, and that's exactly what I wanted when I was a prospective student. And lastly, of course, I made some amazing friends in college, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. So yeah, if you have any questions whatsoever about my student experience, my time in Maynooth or my course, anything like that, feel free to ask.
Beth, thanks a million. That's excellent. And I'm conscious, Judith, you are multitude of tasks today and you have to go shortly to set up the business webinar. But if there were any more questions, myself and Beth can look after them. So
okay,
yeah, so sorry, Judith. Yep.
I'll head off then. Okay. Thanks,
you take
everyone.
care, Judith.
Bye.
All the best. Take care. Bye-bye. So just there was a question that came in from a student about study abroad and how will I find out. So one of the things just to mention, folks, is that the university has a team of people in the international office, and we've linkages with colleges across Europe, and that's called an Erasmus program, whereby the European Union will give some funding, but the level of €1,000 approximately, I think, each year in terms of going abroad across the European Union. Then there are what are called study, so that's called Erasmus, and then there's study abroad, which is outside of the EU. And we've links with many different universities all over the world, but there isn't Erasmus funding. So it's very much, unfortunately, back to the student and the family. But there is a study abroad session later on a Zoom, and our colleague Patty Hayden, who's an expert in this area, will be giving a webinar on the whole aspect of the study abroad experience. So there is that. But I'm just conscious there was a couple of other questions. I don't know if you can see them there. There was a part around, give me 2 seconds here. There was one which was the qualifications. I might take this one. It was the qualifications to become a criminologist. And obviously there's a whole aspect around criminology here as a program. So we have a number of students who are studying criminology as a subject on its own. Other students studying criminology with law and criminology degree. We have students who are studying law and criminology and psychological studies. So there's combinations there. Some people want to go into areas like the guards and Garda Síochána. Some want to go into the prison service. So there's a whole range of different opportunities there. Beth, if there was any questions there you saw in the chat, by all means, fire ahead. If there's anything that you can see that.
Yeah, even just to add on to what you're saying about the criminology one.
Sure.
I wouldn't know specifically about becoming a criminologist, but I think it's a great starting point just to get into doing any form of criminology as a subject, for example, in Maynooth. And then it's even at that point, you can ask lecturers as well, and you could also send questions to lecturers even in advance. But a lot of the time, like for example, to become a psychologist, you do need a master's and a doctorate. It kind of depends on what level, I guess. And that's the same with a lot of jobs in any, like after any degree, it kind of depends to what level you want to go to, whether you need postgraduate study or not.
Thanks, Beth. There was another question here around in terms of teaching and the aspect of placements in your local location. And I think honestly, just to say that what happens in our primary education and in second level education, there is absolutely recognition of that. But unfortunately, there is a sort of distance around where the supervisors can go with a radius from the university. I'm actually not sure of the total, but I know there's discretion at the beginning whereby a student, for instance, in the primary education degree, often they will go back into placement in their own primary school because they have a sense of that. But as you move up through second, third and fourth year, we kind of broaden the experiences so that you teach at different types of schools and teach at different types of the nature of those schools and then different levels. So it might be that you're starting off with junior infants and senior infants, but then moving into third and fourth class and second and third and so on as you move along. There was a couple of questions around the summer school. So unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we were unable to do the summer school this year. We had an online version and the videos of that are still available. And I should have said the video for today and the slides for today will be available next week as well. So unfortunately, we would have loved to have had the summer school. It's my colleague, Dr. Laura Creevy, who manages the summer school. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do an actual physical campus tours and all of that. But in fairness, we were able to do an online version. There's a question then. So we're looking ahead now at this stage. We're planning the intake of first years. And so part of the orientation will involve, we're hoping as much of that on campus as possible. So there will be at that stage in terms of coming into September. Beth, come in there if there's any questions that you saw that you want to answer. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's one here about when you're doing an arts degree, for example, which subject do you study on Erasmus, or can you study both? Again, I think this depends on the subjects you're doing, and questions specific to this can always be directed to the international office. However, I do know most of the time, if you're studying 2 subjects in MH 101, you would pick one subject to study abroad in for a year. So I have a friend of mine who did media studies and music, and she focused on media studies when she was abroad. I have another friend who's doing psychology, but they were doing pure psychology, so they only did psychology abroad. So generally speaking, it's actually just one. And sometimes your subject choice can limit where you can go, because if the university doesn't offer that subject choice in English, for example, if you're not doing a second language, then you can't go to that university, for example.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. And just to mention again, there's the Study Abroad webinar. You'll see it on the actual Zoom on the schedule for today. And Patricia Hayden is very, very adept and will be able to help you. But as Pat says, what happens is often there's a point whereby there's a dialogue between the course that you're on and the coordinator who's managing the Erasmus and Study Abroad, and then connections to the university that you're thinking of going to, and then a matching exercise that, yes, can I do the material? So it might be that something in 3rd year or 4th year is important and you have to have done that material in 2nd year, like during your year abroad. So the good thing is there's a team here who'll help you with that. Somebody just asked around, will there be questions, or sorry, will this recording happen and can I look back on it? The answer is absolutely yes. So if you've registered with us, we'll be sending you details and you'll be able to log in and have a look at this video again. Question here about, if I accept my level 8, how does I know, or how do I cancel my level 7? So basically what's happening is your level 8 and level 7 offers are coming out to you at the same time. You'll get a deadline of maybe a few days in round 1, a couple of days in round 2. But what happens is the CEO will just record your acceptance for level 8. If that's what you're accepting, you don't have to cancel level 7. The fact that the time elapses, and once it goes past 5:15 on the day it was to be accepted by, you haven't accepted, the computer will automatically assume that you're not taking that. Question here is, I hope to do law, but not sure what I was back up on my CAO application. Which courses would you recommend? Certainly, we have a lot of students who would apply for things like law or business or computer science or finance. And then they'll also apply for arts here, because we have a fantastic system whereby if you pass 1st year in arts and studied law and study business, for instance, you can transfer to law and business in 2nd year, maybe law on its own. So when somebody says, what would I do? So the advice we'll be giving is apply for the courses that you want, might be law and business and computer science, whatever. And then you might have MH 101 arts underneath. And by passing the particular subjects, you can transfer into the 2nd year of that degree. And there's guaranteed progression in that in terms of the arts. Now, often we have huge number of first preferences. People are saying, what's the arts degree of particularly one? So it's up to each person there. Just having a quick look at any other things here. Hi there, the Leaving Cert results will be out in September, but the CAO application will offer in August. So how will that work? So basically the CAO have announced that they're going to defer the offers until I have a note here, the 7th of September. So just that question, thanks for your question, by the way. So nothing's going to happen in August. You can actually enjoy your August and then just be around for the first week in September. There's a question here, Beth, if you want to take it, which is student orientation. I know it's going back a little bit, but do you recall student orientation that week? What happened that week?
It has been a long time, 4 years, but thankfully I worked at orientation for 3 years, so I do have a good enough sense of that. So generally speaking, it's the week before lectures start, so you won't have any lectures that week. And you're generally given a schedule, so you're not busy every day of the week. Usually it's 2 days, roughly. And you're grouped with people who are in the same course as you as well, or similar courses, so like science courses, arts courses, law courses, etc. And what happens basically is your schedule will vary because it's like kind of a cycle, and so everyone's will be slightly different. But you will get registered, you'll get your student card, you'll get a tour of the library, you'll get a campus tour, you'll get a talk from the president of Maynooth University, you'll get maybe course-specific talks from heads of department. You also get some talks about all the different services that are available in Maynooth, so that going in what support you can get. And you'll also be introduced to the Maynooth Students' Union, your representatives there, all the different facilities. So it's really just getting you accustomed and introduced to all the facilities available in Maynooth University for you. and also getting you ready to start studying, because you need your student card and you need to be registered obviously to access the library and to access your logins and for different things, like your Moodle, for example, where you access different course content. So yeah, it's just a series of events that and there's also like social events that would happen that week as well. So it's just a way to get into Maynooth University, a series of events to get introduced and settled. Yeah.
Great, Beth. There's just a couple of other questions here. One is around deferral. How do I defer? So say you get an offer in the CAO for deferred place to Maynooth University. You complete an online deferral application form within before 2 days of the deadline of the offer. But what happens is when you get the offer, if you want to defer, you just get online and you make an application to defer. We look at that, give that due consideration, and more often than not, that's accepted. So you don't accept your CAO offer, you make an application here to Maynooth University, and then we will confirm for you that you have a deferred place. And then in 2022, you'd reapply for CAO, putting that course your first and only preference. And as long as you put it your first and only preference, we will offer you the place the following year. Even if the points go up by 100, once you're guaranteed the place once you got the offer this year. A couple of other questions around the time to choose art subjects, and it's the same in arts and science, a whole range of subjects here. You have 4 weeks at the beginning of the year, and there was a question about when will things start. So first years are starting with us on the 20th of September, and their lectures, that's orientation week, and then lectures are starting on the 27th of September. And there's a question about vaccinations. So we're hoping that the government, we're working closely with the government. So depending on the advice we get from the government, we're hoping to as many students here on campus as possible. But again, it's subject to the public health advice. Question also about studying a language in any course. So we have a wonderful system called electives here at Maynooth. And students from across the university can do a beginner language or what's called a continuing language if they've already done a language. So there would be maybe not as much availability of language in science or in engineering, but certainly in the whole humanities and business and law, there's an option to do languages with that. If you see any other questions, Beth, jump in if there's anything else there.
Yeah, earlier on it was asked what is the cost of on-campus accommodation, and like do the payments need to be in installments or upfront. So as we covered in the presentation, the cost of accommodation is roughly 4,700 to maybe 6,000, 6,500. But again, it depends on what you choose and it depends on what suits your needs. So that's what is great about the accommodation. I personally stayed in a shared bathroom accommodation in my first year, and that's one of the cheaper ones. So it's not en suite, but I saved money. So that's why I chose it. And it was still really lovely. So you can choose shared bathroom versus en suite, and that will differ the price. And definitely the costs can be in installments. So I think I paid 2 installments, but you can also speak with the accommodation office if it needs to be more installments based on your needs. And thank you for the well wishes as well from that person.
That's lovely. There's a lovely couple of questions then about international. Yes, about 10% of our students here at the Maynooth are international. There was a question about postgraduate. I'm proud to say there's a postgraduate webinar coming up shortly. So certainly each of the master's programs here have different deadlines, and so there is actually a postgraduate session that's starting shortly. I'm conscious of time. It's just 3 minutes to 11, and there's a whole set of other webinars starting at 11 o'clock. So we might just wrap up shortly and maybe take the last 1 or 2 questions here if there's anything else. Somebody did ask, had a leaving cert from previous year. So that's going to go back into the pot and will be assessed. So even though you'll leaving cert maybe from 2021, from 2020 or 2019, that's all taken and put into the pot and considered for round 1. And then there was a question around the aspect about the access program. Yes, there is a particular launchpad program for that. Can you choose electives from other courses if you're doing primary teaching? Unfortunately not, because the primary teaching curriculum is so packed with all of the stuff you have to do, with all the material you have to do across all of the subjects in primary teaching. Unfortunately, you can't take an elective. It's something we'd love to do, but unfortunately, because of the teaching council requirements, there isn't a space for that. How far do you have to live to get student accommodation? There's no location limit. You could be 10 miles or 100 miles or 1,000 miles. Doesn't matter. Loads of best wishes coming in for you, Beth. So
I know, very kind.
which
Just
is
to
great.
say on the accommodation actually as well, unlike other universities, Maynooth University accommodation is first come, first served. So it's not a lottery. If you are first there, you will get something, you know? So I very much treat it as getting concert tickets and just be on the ball, be there when it opens and do your best. But you don't have to worry about it being random, at least, which I enjoyed personally.
Okay, so we'll finish up. There was one which was the deferred student who wants to do MH 101, and can they do a language? Absolutely. In arts, you can blend business with languages, and there's a whole choice. The 6 groups, and there's an arts session just at 2 o'clock. So we're going to finish now because it's 11 o'clock, and other sessions are starting now at 11. Thank you very much for joining us. Special thanks to Beth, and the best luck with your future career. And thank you very much. And if you have a look on our schedule now, you'll see all of the stuff that's happening throughout the day. And then there's a Q&A with all of our academic staff between 1 and 2. So over 100 staff here to take any questions that you have between 1 and 2 today. Best of luck and take care.
Thank you so much, everyone.